they make you feel such a bad person for murdering people, and so it's kind of hard to play the game because you're like, I want to be able to like do a pacifist run, but you keep catching me. Welcome to the Top Podcast. Your host, Lou. Joining me with Rob.
What's up?
And Mike.
Hey.
I'd like to have a fun question each week. Our fun question this week is, what is your favorite scent? Give me the smells.
Oh, okay.
Probably the 50 cent.
I was going to say a silver dollar or golden dollar, but
Oh, dang it. That is worth more.
Well, I guess that's wrong.
That's a dollar,
right.
though,
Yeah, that's a dollar, but it's in a cent piece.
Only one person on this podcast has a child. Okay, let's not do this.
I stand alone on Dad Joke Corner, and you are not invited.
What do you got for us, Lou?
I didn't know I'd have to start this. For me, it would be that smell of a morning dew. I think that is like my favorite way to start the day. It reminds me of those really early Bear Lake counselor meetings that you'd have to go to, where it's just like, I don't know, it sucked waking up that early, especially if you had to stay up till like 2 because your kids can't stop laughing at farts. But I don't know. It felt like a really cool way to wake up is to get that fresh morning dew.
I really like fresh baked bread.
That's a solid one.
Are you the baker in your family, or?
No, I cook a lot, and I can't bake for crap. And my wife is the exact opposite. Although she's getting better at cooking too. She's starting to become a multi-purpose person.
Oh, they're gonna say tool. I was like, bro.
Well, no, I realized that's where that sentence was leading. I was like, that wasn't my intent to make that, like, to express that concept. So I need a veer quickly.
That's such a hard question for me. My first thought was pine. Like, I just love the smell of pine needles. But then I also love the smell of like a completely natural like campfire. So no lighter fluid or no other stuff. But that is, my goodness, that's so good. So I guess a natural campfire in the pine woods. So
like a burnt pine campfire. There we go.
I guess so. Yeah. I haven't gotten to the point where I can smell different like woods. Like I can't tell you what a difference between a fresh oak cut down and a fresh pine cut down is. But I will say I did a 6-month stint working as a laborer for a carpenter, and the smell of wood just kind of it started to remind me of work. So that did kind of start to lower the scent. Like they have those Febreze sprays that like are wood. And I remember I got it once because I'm like, I like the smell of wood. I sprayed it. I'm like, nope, this reminds me of work. Can't use this anymore.
Yeah, usually somebody's favorite scent is connected to like a good memory, but yours is the opposite.
I liked it before. And
it's been tainted.
Yeah, it's been tainted.
Also, shout out to fresh sizzling bacon.
My dear listener, let me share a little secret with you. You see, we're about to dive deep into some seriously twisted tales, and I wouldn't want to spoil the fun for you. So here's your friendly Joker warning. If you haven't experienced the chaos and mayhem we're about to discuss, consider yourself warned. You're in for a wild ride, and remember, it's all just a podcast.
So this week we were talking about favorite NPCs. What is your guys' definition of a good NPC?
Someone that just takes the news at face value and doesn't think for themselves.
All right.
Do we want to pull up like an internet definition, or do we just want to?
I mean, Mike, if you want to pull up the exact definition, I guess I'll give you my actual answer.
Yeah, I mean, we can get our intern to pull it up.
That's true.
Yeah, the intern is on it.
So NPC obviously stands for a non-playable character. So for the most part, I'd say that's a character you interact with, and maybe there's a specific scene in like Mass Effect where one of the NPCs you get to play for a brief moment, and I think that would still count as an NPC, even though you could control them for like a 10-minute moment. So when they're predominantly out of your control, I think that is a good definition of NPC, and that can be villain, side character, random villager.
Yeah, it's all pretty in line with what the research department is telling me. Just any character that you don't control. I did see because I did a little digging on that, and it's super annoying because the term NPC has so many, like it's rolled into pop culture at this point, and so there's like some other uses. One of the things I saw was that like it's not somebody you fight, and I think that's BS. Like I think somebody can be an NPC and an enemy that you have conflict in, however the game provides that, and have them still be an NPC. I think that idea is kind of silly. I think it was more saying like it can't be just a generic, like a zombie, like that's not an NPC.
Would you consider Trainer Joey an NPC? Pokemon Trainer Joey?
Yeah.
Okay. Because he's someone you fight, but he's like, the first name trainer in the Pokemon games.
Right.
So
Pokemon, I would say that Pokemon is like the reason I draw a hard stance on NPCs being somebody you can engage in whatever the video game conflict is, because I think Pokemon is full of great NPCs and you battle almost all of them.
It's true.
That's fair.
All right, I'll start us off. We were just talking about this before we recorded, but Mass Effect, I think, has the best NPCs of all time, and it was super hard to pick one. I decided to pick Joker. He's the pilot of the ship. I also think it's super hilarious that he was voiced by Seth Green. My favorite NPCs that I've noticed are just tend to be ride or dies. They just tend to be like people who just like show you love, and I think it's so funny that you have choices in Mass Effect that you could just be a hard-nosed crazy character, and Joker is not he's gonna pilot that ship no matter if you decide to completely eradicate a whole civilization. And that's dedication. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Did you guys ever play? I never played Mass Effect to the endless frustration of Jacob, Andrew's older brother. But did you ever play Dishonored?
Play like the first two.
I played the first one.
Okay. Samuel the Boatman is an honorable mention for me, and he's kind of the same way, where like whether you go evil or you go good, he always takes you to your mission. The reason I like him too is at the end, based on whether you went evil or good, you get a different ending with him. I feel like I understand, even though I've never played the game.
Spoilers, doesn't he turn on you if you do bad?
Yeah, if you're evil, like as he's flying or as he's sailing away, he like shoots up a flare and lets everybody know you're coming.
Yeah. Okay.
He also just reads you the riot act. Like he just chews you out for being a terrible person.
But yeah, Joker was, that's the reason I said there are some times where you might control him, because there is a part in Mass Effect 2 where the ship gets taken over and Joker's like the only one not captured, so you control Joker. And honestly, I spoiler, have a Mass Effect character on here, and it was just a roll of dice for me. Like I thought about Joker, but ended up going a different direction. So I 100% agree that he's a great NPC, and he's funny too.
I do. Yeah, he's super funny, and he tries to have sex with a robot, which I think
was going to say way before his time. He falls in love with AI.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. The most important part, he has like this like disease where his bones break, and so like he's crippled. So anything that he does, and when he was trying to save the ship, is like extra cool because his bone can break from like a feather falling on it.
Is it like Sam Jackson in Unbreakable?
I've never seen that movie, but yes.
Ooh, check it out.
It's like
it's underrated.
I think it's like his bones are hollow or something like that. There's some birth defect that any like little force will basically break the bones.
Yeah, you should probably pilot a spaceship. That seems like the best solution for that.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why I play the game is because Robert gave me the guilt trip, and I played them all, and I don't regret it. It was a really good time.
True, I gave you look, my the top podcast hat that you can get on Redbubble just arrived apparently at my door. But I gave Lou, I had a PS3 that was just collecting dust, and I'm like, Lou, he was over, we were playing video games, and he mentioned something about having it, and I said, about getting it, and I said, you can have it as long as you get Mass Effect 3 or the Mass Effect trilogy and play it. And it wasn't until the Mass Effect remastered edition came out for the PS4 or whatever that I ended up playing it. But have you even plugged that PS3 in yet?
No, it's pretty though. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah,
you're allowed to grab it back. You're allowed to have it anytime that you want.
No, I'm good. I actually have been thinking of getting.
I'll take it.
There you go. Of getting because it is the first edition PS3, so you can play PS2 and PS1 games on it too. So that's
for real?
Yeah, or at least PS2 games. I don't remember about one. But
that's really cool.
I've been thinking about actually getting like a PS2 shell that just like looks really nice. It doesn't even have to work, but like the old fat PS2 shell that's just like the iconic look, and using it as a decorative piece somewhere. I just don't know where I'd put it though.
Idea.
My number 5 is Yuri. Watanabe from Spider-Man 2018. She is kind of your Commissioner Gordon equivalent in the game. She's your connection in the police department. Her and Spider-Man just have the most enjoyable friendship dynamic. I really enjoy it. Peter does this thing where he gets this really gruff voice and he plays this character called Spider Cop. And so he'll have like the grizzled noir self narration while they're on the phone, and it just drives Yuri insane. And it's so much fun. It's kind of like a big brother, little brother, or little sister, like antagonistic relationship. But at the same time, they're going through the hardship of New York City starting to fall apart and them having to put the pieces back together. Yeah. It's an awesome dynamic. And then she has kind of a fall from grace, turn to the dark side storyline in the DLC, which was kind of heartbreaking because she was one of my favorite characters for sure.
I just had like a brain fart. I'm like, oh, so is she replacing Barbara Gordon? No, that's Batman, idiot. I will say Spider Noir from Into the Spider-Verse, one of my favorite iterations from that movie with Nicolas Cage as the voice actor.
So good.
Yeah, that was a good one.
The Spider-Verse movies, I'm going to not get started on them because we won't have a podcast if I start. It'll just be one endless rambling. But those are some of my favorite movies of all time.
Beautiful animation. That's what I'll say. Mm-hmm. So when we were talking about this topic, or when I was thinking over this topic, I got to really thinking what makes a good NPC. And I think obviously that's going to start off with the writing. If you don't have a well-written character, it's not going to be a memorable NPC. Then second, what is the next biggest thing I say is the voice actor. If you can get someone who just puts their heart and soul into the performance, they'll make it not only memorable because of the writing, but that voice actor will just make it fly off the page. So for my first one, or my number 5, it's kind of a weird pick. It's from Portal 2. Now, I know most people will say GLaDOS. We'll say GLaDOS from Portal 2, but my first instinct, which is kind of the gut feeling that I went off for Portal 2, was Cave Johnson. If you don't know who Cave Johnson is, he's voiced by J.K. Simmons, so already you have a great voice actor there. But basically, he's the founder of Aperture Science, which you're a test subject for Aperture Science, and he built this huge testing facility. And one thing I didn't know, which is surprising if you've listened to this podcast and all my fun Michigan facts, the main testing facility from Portal is built in the UP. I didn't know that until I was doing research on the character and all that. So
really,
yeah,
wow, that's pretty cool.
He bought huge salt mines, which I don't know if they're in the UP, but I know there's a huge salt mine under Detroit, so they're probably in the UP. He bought a huge salt mine up there and like revamped it into the testing facility. He's already dead by the time you start to interact with him, and you just get these voice recordings, and it is just funny. Like I could just go when I'm bored and listen to his memoirs and his kind of rantings, and he is just such a well fleshed out and funny character. And
the writing in Portal is just top notch.
It is, and he's one of the persons that will always put science before morals. I included a memorable quote from my NPCs here, and this is one of my favorite ones that just sticks out in my head. It goes, "Those of you who have volunteered to be injected with the praying mantis DNA, I've got some good news and some bad news. Bad news is we're postponing those tests indefinitely. Good news is that we have a much better test for you, fighting an army of mantis men. Pick up a rifle and follow the yellow line. You'll know when the test starts." and that just kind of encompasses like what he's about. And just picture, instead of me doing that, J.K. Simmons, and it's fantastic.
You played J. Jonah Jameson in the Raimi Spider-Man movies, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why I thought it was so funny that you just got talking about Spider-Man and he brought up.
I think he's also the voice actor for Jameson in the Spider-Man games, and Yuri edged him out by like a hair. It was really close. If I hadn't cheated and had 2 people later down the line, I probably would have done a tag team number 5 because J.K. Simmons just elevates every role.
It makes those, is it the farmer's insurance he is? That makes them entertaining.
Yes.
I don't think he does them anymore.
But yeah. Good about those.
Have you guys seen Whiplash?
Yeah, I saw.
Andrew has.
Yeah, it's like perpetually on my list of movies I want to watch, and I just know he's like, I'm pretty sure he does. Everyone says he does a fantastic role in that.
It was absolutely crazy. Like I don't even have to love like music to like appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely crazy movie. It was really good. All right, it's back up to me. So my 4th is Dexter from Jak and Dexter. So Naughty Dog period is my absolute favorite gaming company. But it started off with Jak and Dexter. I think the definition of a sidekick, I think, is like it would be Dexter. Dexter, super simple. He pulls a Joker. He falls into a vat of eco. What did he call it? They called it again? Dark eco.
Some kind of ooze.
Some type of ooze. He falls into this dark ego and he turns into a muskrat. In the whole 3 games plus some iterations, he pretty much sits on your shoulder, and you eat other characters with him. I don't know if he actually hits him with them, but it looks like he beats
Oh,
other people.
beat. I thought you said eat. I'm like, what game are you playing?
No, no, beats. He beats them with the muskrat. It kind of looks like it. I don't know if he actually is.
Yeah,
or
I think
not,
he
but
like
when
lunge punches, but the animation style looks like he's hitting him with Dexter.
he hit him with Dexter. The reason why I love Dexter is because he is just a classic one-liner character. It's just like for the writers of Dexter, they just wanted to hit him with that old school, super not that funny but kind of funny, just one-liners. So if you die, he'll usually say something silly. But my favorite thing he ever talks about is his desire to wear pants again since he turned into a muskrat. Uh, and I don't know why. It just like brings me back to childhood. He's kind of a horny little muskrat, so he always like falls in love with like some sort of like woman character. And he tries to be a smooth character, but it never really turns out because he's just a muskrat. You do play him in some mini games, but for the most part, he's pretty much just an NPC.
I don't remember. I didn't play. I think I may have only played 1 through 3, maybe once, but started 1 to redo the series all over again. Doesn't he get an opportunity to turn back into elf or whatever they are?
Yeah, he gets it. And I think I can't remember exactly why, but I'm pretty sure his girlfriend likes him as a muskrat, so he just stays as a muskrat. I don't know if that's the reason why. So, and it's funny that he falls in love with like this just classic Southern blonde hair woman. It's good. It's a good time.
You said Ratchet and Clank, and until I Googled it far too far into you guys talking, I'm sorry, you said Jack and Dexter, and I was picturing Ratchet and Clank for the first 70% of that, and I was like, Muskrat. Oh, wrong game.
I forgot about Jack and Dexter, and we were kind of talking before the show that this was a hard list for me just because I have such a big library of games I played, and I feel like I was going to miss one. Very good choice with Dexter.
Yeah, that brought back memories of Spyro, and then Hunter from Spyro was a classic.
Yeah. When I was doing my research, I had a really hard time because I feel like I've left so many characters out on the table, on the cutting board, the cutting floor. That's the
cutting room floor.
Honestly, the second I hit 5, I just stopped because I couldn't. It took me so long to get one that I was like, all right, these were the first 5 that came to me. These are the ones I'm sticking with. Oh, and I'm next, aren't I? Cool. My number 4 is Hornet from Hollow Knight.
Oh shoot!
Hollow Knight is she's kind of like you learn later into the game that I don't know if you learn it or not, but if you dig enough into the lore, you discover that Hornet is actually your half sister. But at first, she's just this mysterious figure that runs away from you, and so you're constantly chasing her, and she leads you farther into the game. And you have a couple of battles, and the 2 battles with Hornet are, I wouldn't say they're my favorite in the game, but they're easily in my top 5 Hollow Knight boss fights. Just really, really good kind of skill gates where if you haven't mastered combat and movement and all the different combat and movement skills you have up until the point where you have to fight her, you don't get to continue. And so it's because Hollow Knight is one of those games that starts easy and then gets just punishingly difficult by the end. It's kind of important that they make sure, hey, before we let you keep going, you got to make sure you have all these different tactics down. So from just a raw nuts and bolts perspective, she's really a fantastic character. But then just her moveset is so interesting. And the way they kind of made her threatening and mysterious is just super cool. And she's going to be the main character of the alleged sequel that has been getting pushed back for so long that I'm starting to think Patrick Rothfuss is involved in the writing of the game.
Could be Martin too,
but or Martin. But yeah, so it's one of those things where she's still an NPC until that game comes out, so it counts. But I'm super excited to play her full game. I'm super excited to learn her whole new moveset. That's just super interesting. Yeah, great battles. And then the other cool thing is after you beat her the final time, she shows up and helps you get, like, there's 3 different ways to complete the final boss. She helps you get either the middle or the best ending. And if you only get the middle ending, I'm pretty sure she dies in the process. So you get, depending on how you play the game, you either get locked away and Hornet is locked away from you permanently, or Hornet helps you defeat the final boss but dies in the process, or Hornet helps you truly defeat the final boss who's hidden within what you think is the final boss. Yeah, so it's just super cool where you go from kind of adversaries to friends who are kind of in it together and fighting through the muck. And yeah, I think she's one of my, for a game with almost no dialogue and no voice acting, she's one of my all-time favorites, to the extent that my wife's ringtone is her boss theme and my text tone is her attack sound. So whenever I get a text from Mackenzie, my phone goes, Adino!
That's pretty awesome. I played that game twice now, and I did not know she was my half sister.
Yeah, I only know because I went down some hardcore rabbit holes both times. Okay. I've played it once all the way through. I didn't 100% it. I over 100%ed it, but there's still more. Like I got like 105%, but I think you can get like 118 or something with DLC. I agree. Yeah, so I beat it all the way once, and then I got very far into it twice. Besides that, every single time I ended up just going down a huge YouTube rabbit hole because I just get obsessed with that game when I start playing it.
Does that game take like a Dark Souls approach to storytelling, or lore at least? Okay.
Both. Honestly, it's a Metroidvania meets Dark Souls. Like it has when you die, you lose all your money and you have to get back and recover it. The cool thing is, instead of just picking up a bloodstain, you actually have to kill your shade, which is kind of fun. And as you acquire new spells and power-ups, it acquires those spells and power-ups. So at first it's really easy, but it's never difficult, but it can be kind of annoying towards the end game because it's like, oh, this thing has a bunch of spells I have to dodge to kill it. And it's somewhere dangerous because I died. And so that's a fun element. And then, it's got that thing where it's like you can play through the whole game and kind of have a vague idea of what was going on, or you can dive headfirst into the lore and find lore tablets, and you get these items that you can sell to a specific vendor. So they kind of work like the raw souls that you can break in the Dark Souls game, except when you sell them to the vendor, he'll give you a little piece of lore to go along with that information. Yeah, it's a really, really interesting and well done lore game. But at the same time, because I'm a gameplay first kind of person, like I like games where the movement is really good. That's kind of my favorite thing, is games where I'm moving in a way that makes me feel awesome. This totally nails that, but its environment is so rich and interesting that it makes me want to dig into the lore, and almost no game ever makes me care about lore.
Lou, are you a story or gameplay person first?
Well,
or I guess which would you choose? Like if you had to choose one above the other?
It would easily be gameplay. I mean, like I know it's gameplay because Dark Souls is my favorite series, and I don't care much about the lore in Dark Souls.
I've beaten Dark Souls at least 20 times. Like I've maxed out the New Game Plus. Could barely tell you what's going on.
Yeah. It's just Dark Souls. I mean, From Software has such an opportunity to build such an amazing story, and especially when you even hire just an amazing story writer, and you still just give out this like half-butt story where you have to dive into and read items, subscriptions, and stuff. And so yeah, I'm definitely a gameplay guy.
Now I do know there's a lot of people who love that approach because like they get to play archaeologists a little bit and kind of just unearth the lore. Like some people scratches their itch, and I don't get it personally, but some people love it.
What's that style of storytelling again? Is it environmental?
Oh, there is a term. There's environmental storytelling.
Is it that? I couldn't remember.
I don't remember off the top of my head. Well, and I don't honestly. It should be the main approach, because when I think of that style of storytelling, Dark Souls immediately comes to mind. Hollow Knight comes to mind. The Metroid Prime series comes to mind, and those are all obscenely well received games. And I'm a big Metroid fan. Not a huge Metroid Prime fan. I prefer the 2D games. But it's like, hey, when you look at some of the best rated and best received games of all time, that's kind of a common thread. You also get it in Dishonored, and the BioShock games have some of that. Like, I don't know. It seems to me that should be the only way to go. Maybe that's just because it's what I like.
Yeah, I mean, my argument is if the gameplay wasn't good and if it was only just the storyline, I don't think anybody would play those games.
I think
the Telltale games.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I have a few, and one of them's my honorable mention, but I think gameplay 100% is important. Like if you have you could have the best story in the world, but since it's a video game, if the gameplay is absolute crap, then it's gonna suck. But there are some games that are like basically walking simulators that are very engaging and good stories. And I feel like recently for me, one example would be Baldur's Gate. I am having the most fun I've had with a video game in a long time. And most of that is because of the story and the characters. And just like, I keep on thinking about this and like the story and everything. The gameplay, it's just, you know, combat D&D. And like, I like combat D&D, but I get tired of it pretty quickly. The other aspects of D&D are the better part, but at the end of the day, it's just turn-based, but the story is what kind of puts it over the edge for me. So
Yeah, I guess RPGs really are kind of the other side of my coin there, is that there's entire games that are basically built around story, and then RPG mechanics are they're fun. Yeah. It really kind of is the story propping those games up.
Yeah, because when I think of like my greatest game of all time, like which is Skyrim, like the gameplay, but it's the environment and the world and like the story that they built and the mods. Obviously, the mods drag that game out a lot, but like that's the fun stuff from it. So
I don't disagree, I will say.
That should have been the funny question.
Well, it's not really funny, you know.
That's true. That is a very topic heavy question.
I mean, yeah.
My number 4 comes from the Red Dead Redemption games, and if you guys don't know anything about Red Dead Redemption, it's basically a Hollywood Western simulator. So think of all the Clint Eastwoods and all your classic Western movies, and this is a story-first game, but there is some really good gameplay. And the second one, it's called Red Dead Redemption 2, is actually a prequel to Red Dead Redemption. It's weird terminology, but most of the interaction with this character comes in the second one, which is before the first one, but he's in the first one. So, you know, it's just some weird time stuff. So if you get confused if I mention something about the future being the first one, that is the reason. But my number 4 is Dutch Vanderlyn, voiced by Benjamin Davis. In Red Dead Redemption 2, you're playing as part of the Vanderlyn gang, and obviously the gang's named after someone. It's leader Dutch, and through that game, he is just like the smooth talking, big picture leader of the band of cowboy outlaws that the main character is a part of. He starts out as this guy you kind of look up to, and the main character looks up to him. They've been with each other for so long, and like he makes the best decisions for the group. And he kind of started off, especially when you get the story, he starts off as this Robin Hood. He's gonna steal from the rich and give to the poor. But as you go through the game, it seems like no matter what little victory you have, you take every 2 steps forward, you're taking 10 steps back. And just slowly as the game goes, you see him start to become paranoid and kind of delve into madness, and he just takes these losses so much, and his moral compass begins to crumble. The main character is basically like the voice of reason in the gang, and then the side character Micah is like the devil in the game that just wants them to be chaotic and is kind of like a yes man. Just whenever he has a crazy off the wall idea, Michael's like, yeah, let's go for it, and who cares whatever the consequences are. Micah ends up manipulating Dutch to the point where the gang is basically forced apart. Dutch drives the gang out by kicking them out, thinking they're paranoid. They're turning him into the Pinkertons and all that. And it is just, it's heartbreaking to see. And going back and playing it, you can kind of see that his moral compass may have not been exactly like what it was presented to be. And it's just these failures have compounded and wore him down. So my memorable quote that kind of shows the dichotomy of this man who has a code, but he'll do whatever it takes to get his gang, especially himself, out of trouble. It comes to a point where the gang robs a government. I don't remember if it's a post office or what, but they rob some government entity, and they're holed up in a trolley car, and there's a shootout, and there's some innocent people on board, and he says, "We don't want to kill any of you, but trust me, we will." And that just shows like, man, this guy, he has jumped off the edge and full on just almost Joker, because he just puts himself first, and you really don't see that first. He does a good job masking it as he's putting the group's interest first, but really at the end of the day, he's just been kind of this grand manipulator, and it's really all been about him.
That's really cool. I've heard I've never played either of those games, and that is the first thing that's actually made me genuinely consider picking them up.
Yeah, it's great, and I really like the gunplay. It's a third-person shooter, and it is basically a cowboy simulator, and there's also that game itself. It doesn't have anything to do with the NPCs, but they're kind of what I hear a lot of people thought of Breath of the Wild. I didn't have the same experience, but there were times I'd be riding my horse, and then just the scenic view would be there of the Old West, or it's based off of old Western things, and you just like stop and just kind of take it in. And that type of immersion is something you don't get very frequently, at least I don't. So would highly recommend those games if you haven't played them.
Yeah, there are very few games that get me to stop and just enjoy the scenery, but I love it when I find one. Isn't 2 just obscenely large?
Yeah, it's a huge world. And actually, I think incorporates most of what from the first one, like a good portion of the first one's map too.
Oh, that's cool.
Have you played them?
Yeah,
Lou?
I played a little bit. So I played a little bit of the first one when it first came out, but then I got to Mexico and for some reason I just quit. I don't know if that makes any. And then I played all of the second one. I feel like I missed some of the detail of the second one because I didn't remember playing the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even know that it was a prequel when I was playing it. I will say that was the first game where I don't there isn't fast travel in the second one, right?
You have to like use a train to go places. You go and you pay money to get on a train to take you to the train stations.
Yeah, so I think that was the first game where it didn't bother me that there wasn't a fast travel, just because I had a feeling that I was going to run into something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was missing the opportunity if there was going to be a fast travel. It's a really good game.
Yeah. And weird thing that I wish they did with the second one, but for the first game, they had, it wasn't canon, but they did this downloadable content just for fun. It was called Undead Nightmare, where basically the whole world had become zombie infested and like ammo was really hard to find and you were just trying to survive this zombie apocalypse in the Old West. That was so much fun. I wish they brought it back for the second one, but I doubt they're going to do that because they're already moving on to GTA 6.
I think I've seen was there a special cover?
Yeah, it was John Marston with a double barrel shotgun, or maybe just a regular zombie with a double barrel shotgun.
Yeah,
cover.
I remember seeing that and being like, "What the heck is this?"
It's wild,
but it was still cool looking. Like I was like, "This is neat," but what is going on?
All right, so my number 3 is I feel like I'm gonna struggle with his name, and I looked it up a couple times. Kim Segura from Disco Elysium. And so it was so funny that we were just talking about the difference between gameplay and story, and I was pro gameplay. But Disco Elysium, if you haven't played it, it's a over the top, pretty much point and click game. There's like, and it's all storyline. And I thought it was honestly my favorite game this year before I played Baldur's Gate. It was such a beautiful storyline, such beautiful characters, and such a meek world. I can't praise it enough. The pretty simple the story is that you're this drunken cop who is an amazing cop, but he's a hardcore drinker. And you drink so much that you completely forget to do anything. Like you forget how to speak, you forget you're only left with your primal feelings. It is super hilarious how you start off. And as you wake up, you start remembering how to like walk and how like what your face looks like. Completely your mind is completely erased. But then you find out that you're a cop, and you find out that you're a cop is on a mission, not a mission, what do you call it, a crime scene. You're pretty much living on a crime scene, and there's a dead man hanging from a tree, and it's your job to figure out why this dead man, or who killed this dead man. And then like a little bit afterwards you run into Kim, and he is the most straight lace. He's pretty much your yin to your yang. If you're like this drunken cop, he is like the straight lace, bitty, by the book character. And as you do this mission with him, or as you discover this crime scene, you start to fall in love with him because of he starts talking to you about his backstory. And as you're going through this crime scene, and as you're like trying to figure out who killed this man, I just like I made decisions based off of wondering what Kim would think about me. And that's when I figured out that I knew this was a really cool guy, and that this is a really cool NPC because I cared about another man's decision that's not even real, and so I made me want to be a better cop, and that was awesome.
Did that game come out this year?
I think no, I doubt that. I think a couple years ago or last year. Really good game though.
Did you say the last name was Segura?
No, Kim Kits. No, I did not say no because that's Tom Segura's last name.
Yeah, that was what it made me think of is the bit where he says his name, he's checking into a hotel, and the guy's like, "Are you Japanese?"
Segura.
He's like, "No." He's like, "Segura." And you said that, and I almost just laughed over you talking because that joke jumped into my head.
Yeah. No. It's something like that though. I just didn't want to butcher it. Really good game. I recommend it if you want a good storyline. It was one of the first games I played where I was really upset the fact that it ended. Like I was like, give me like 10 more hours. Like like it was, I feel like there was like things that still needed to be done, and they just like took you away. So I'm waiting until like a couple years so I completely forget the storyline and I play it again.
Very nice.
So that's me.
Nice. My number 3 is Jade Aldemir from Dying Light. Dying Light was one I picked up pretty recently, actually, and it just immediately jumped up in my my rankings, and it's a zombie survival game where you're you're in the quarantine zone and you're trying to solve some wildly contrived political plot line. The story of the game is incredibly cheesy, but for my money, that's what you want in a full zombie survival game. I want the camp. I want the cliches. And so Jade, you get bit right away, right as you make it into the quarantine zone. And Jade and her, I don't know if it's her boyfriend, her partner, what it is, but the person she works with, they save you, and the partner gets just devoured by zombies. And so the game starts out where Jade kind of doesn't like you because you cost her friend. And as the game progresses, she becomes this kind of a love interest, but also just someone that you have mutual respect for. Like, she is just as able and intelligent as you are, and so there's all this push and pull dynamic as everybody has their own agenda. She also has a little brother who's a fantastic character. By the end of the game, both of them turn and you have to be the one to kill each of them. And so it was really between the two of them. But for me, Jade was the one that I connected with that storyline more, because you spend so much time in danger and having to trust this person to have your back and having to go out on a limb to try and save them. And so even though the story of the game was kind of silly and nothing special, I thought the relationship you develop with Jade was genuinely touching. And I was actually a little bit upset when you break her neck after she turns into a zombie. It's a rough scene where you're just like, I really thought maybe like we could both make it out of this alive. That's probably my appreciation for the character is probably a little skewed by how much I enjoyed the game, but it's pretty difficult to separate the game and the NPC to me. Like, you just get bonus points for being in a game I like.
I love Dying Light, the first one.
It's
that
so
jump
good.
kick, that jump click.
It's so broken.
So good. Yeah. It really, and then that, like, I love when games can just, like, the reason why I don't want to go in a huge rant, but like the reason why I love Dark Souls so much is that it literally like takes my breath away when I'm I'm fighting a boss and I'm so close and I'm one hit away and they're one hit away and I get that last hit and I can finally breathe.
Yep.
Dying Light that night when it turned into nighttime and then you're being chased.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Like another, like, just like taking my breath away. So
yeah, it is. Yeah, the night is so good. It was so good that I basically didn't play at nighttime for the longest time. Like, I kept my eye on the sun and I was like, oh, it's 5 p.m. I'm getting to a safe house. I will not be caught in the dark.
The Minecraft approach.
Yeah, and I got it way after it came out for PS5, or I got it on PS5, but it's the PS4 version. And so it came with all the DLC. And so halfway through, I was like, oh, I can craft a bow. That's kind of cool. And apparently I crafted a DLC bow that was super OP. So like halfway through the game, I was like, oh, I got this bow. And it kills like everything in one shot, one headshot. Like, headshot is an auto one-hit kill, but I was like, but the arrows are pretty limited. And so I was really conservative with it until I realized you could pick up arrows. And then I just tore through the tail end of that game. Just nothing could stop me. I was just running. I basically went from terrified all the time to I'm arrow now and nothing can stand in my way.
I think you meant to say Daryl, but I'll let that pass.
Arrow as in the green arrow from
I got you.
the TV show.
I was making a Walking Dead reference because it was zombies.
I watched one episode back in the day. I really enjoyed it. And then right as he was under that tank or whatever that vehicle was, my Netflix was like, hey, you haven't paid and we're done letting you not pay. And so it literally stopped mid episode. And then by the time I paid for Netflix again, I was just like, I'm on to something else.
What a crappy time to end, because that horse gets eaten.
Oh, jeez.
It's getting real.
Yeah, it was intense. I was like, this is really good. What is the Wi-Fi gone? What's happening? I haven't paid and I'm 22 and have no money. What am I going to do?
Because that's like right when like he meets the other crew that becomes his crew. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he finds out that his best friend is having sex with his wife.
If you say so.
What a way to... And then aliens come, and then they find out that aliens are the reason why.
Yep. And then the Hell's Gates spawn open. It's just wild. Basically, every end times is in The Walking Dead.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So my number 3 is also a Mass Effect trilogy character. And kind of like what I alluded to before, I feel like I could take a 6 to 8 sided dice, roll it with a list of like the best characters in that game, and I would be happy kind of picking either of them. But I decided to go with one, I think, basically because her alien species is super interesting to me. I think that's kind of what made her stand out from the rest of the crowd. It's Tali Zoravas Normandy, voiced by Liz Sroka. Probably said that terribly, but hey, blame my dyslexia. The Quarian people are basically nomads. They created this like super advanced AI that ended up rebelling against them. And now they, in their homeworld, was like super free of diseases. That so much that when they left their homeworld, they have to be in these super airtight, disease-free spacesuits because if like someone coughed to them, basically their whole society would be compromised because they just have such a weak immune system. They're just continually, they have this giant fleet called the Migrant Fleet that is just continually roaming space. So this person is from that fleet. And you first meet her on this pilgrimage. She's on the pilgrimage because a rite of passage in that society is you go and find something of use to the fleet and you bring it back and you get it accepted into one of the ships. You meet her there and she already starts out as like this BA where she's like, this really bad guy is doing really bad stuff and I'm going to go turn him in. I don't care that people are chasing after me and threatening to kill me. I'm going to go and I'll fight him for it. She starts out also kind of naive in that sense that she's, I'm just going to go turn him in. Like it's the right thing to do. And her character grows so much through all three games that she ends up like becoming a leader and like really leading her people to the victory. But then like you see her when her whole squad gets wiped out in one thing and she's just like heartbroken. You really feel for her. And at times she can be kind of morally gray and she's always willing to put other people's needs in front of her own. And you kind of see her work through all these different things like threat of exile from her company, having to work with people who are her people's sworn enemies. So they have to work it with the Gith, with a member of the Gith who is part of the AI, and she is like torn between, do I just kill this machine because that's what I'm supposed to do, or can I use them for better information, kind of understand them more? I don't really have a memorable quote because so much of Mass Effect is your player character along with two companions, and it would just be kind of hard to pick one thing out that would be good in context without having to explain, Garrus was talking about this because this event was happening, all that. So I just think it was one memorable moment for me with Tali is when in Mass Effect 3, she finally has this chance to go back to her homeworld, but she decides that like her crew that she is with your main character on the Normandy is her actual home. And she's like, I'll stay with you guys through thick and thin, even though you're about to go on this like death run. And she has the chance to escape, but she's like, no, I want to be with my people in my home. And just like growing with this character meant a lot. Also, she drinks all of her booze through a straw. It's just funny, like hardcore, like hard liquor. She's drinking through a straw. I think her people don't have a term for it, so she calls it like an emergency exhaust port or something like that, or emergency intake port. And it's just funny.
Like she is allergic to. That's the reason why she has to wear that mask, because she's allergic to.
Well, it's just the people have such a weak immune system, so even like the alcohol, they have to like triple, quadruple filter it so that they can drink it and it not compromise their immune systems. And just the mask and like design of the Quarian species is really cool.
All right, so my second one, I feel like if we did have fans to like get mad at us, I feel like this one would be the one that they get mad at. But Last of Us, Ellie, I think I just tried so hard not to put her on the list. I couldn't do it. I just feel like it had to be done. I know you can play her even in the first game versus even her being one of the main characters in the second one. Most of the time, she is an NPC. I just love Ellie. I think she is just sassy. She's loving. She's witty. She's just like she's a full of life in a dead world, and she completely brings the energy versus Joel, who is just like a rough and tumbling character. Without Ellie, Joel would just be like another dead-end main character where we really didn't care about what happens to him. I mean, you could have some sympathy with him because his daughter dies in like the first 10 minutes of the game. I feel like after that, he doesn't really have a lot of redeeming qualities. He's just a cowboy. Yeah, I think Ellie did an amazing job. I don't know. Should I explain the game? I feel like everybody pretty much knows.
I mean, if you want to do it for my mother-in-law, she probably doesn't know the premise of The Last of Us.
She listened to all of them?
I mean, yeah. She was asking you where your hand is, and you didn't.
I did not respond.
Do you want to address that live?
Yeah, live. I am just a procrastinator.
So it wasn't actually in the mail?
It's never been in the mail.
The cake is a lie.
The cake is a lie.
Can't believe that you lied to his mother-in-law.
Now I have to think of another sticker.
Honestly, it makes that sticker better, in my opinion.
That's fair. All right, so The Last of Us. Think of zombie apocalypse, but plants.
Yeah, it's like a fungus, right?
Like a fungus, yeah, like a plant fungus that turns people into zombies. Ellie is a person who got bit but didn't turn into a plant zombie. So Joel's job is to travel with Ellie across the United States to Seattle. I think they were like in Boston. So from Boston all the way to Seattle to a Firefly, which is a group of people who just like rebelled against the government. A Firefly science group who potentially could make a cure for the zombie apocalypse. And so, and then long story short is Joel finds out later that they would have to kill Ellie to get the DNA out of her brain, I think, to try to make a cure. And Joel was like, hell no, that's not going to happen, and murdered a bunch of people.
So many people
In the process of saving his daughter, who he called the daughter, who is pretty much a daughter to him. And I would have done the same thing.
Well, isn't there an option where you don't actually have to kill like all the people, at least in the hospital?
On the show, there wasn't.
Oh, in the show.
I mean, I was more than willing to kill everybody, so I have no idea.
Yeah, it's funny because apparently there was there was a whole bunch of, I don't know, controversy is not the right word, but people were arguing about whether or not Joel did the right thing. And I was like, no, like I wouldn't even blink. I'd do it 3 times over.
For sure.
Let the world have zombies. I'm not letting you kill my baby girl. Not a chance.
I was gonna say I didn't make it that far in the game because I just hated the controls. But I've heard people argue like, you know, what's the greater good there and everything. I think that shows good story writing is when you can have people argue, and there is a pacifist way to do it.
My favorite part is that he didn't tell Ellie that he murdered a bunch of people, and I think that does a really good job with the story for The Last of Us Part 2. But I know there's a ton of controversy with the second game, and I just don't understand any of it, which is super sad.
Jake?
Yeah, I guess
I think that's the only reason was.
Man, that really sucks.
I've heard some people complain. I haven't played the second one. I haven't played the first one. I obviously haven't seen the second season of the show as it has not come out yet. But I've heard people complain about character assassination of Joel. Whether or not that's accurate, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I know the ending.
But that's what I've heard. And honestly, I don't even need to see the second season. I'm torn. I'm not sure if I'm going to watch it or not because I was so unbelievably happy with the ending of the show or the first season of the show that I was like, honestly, this can be done right here. And I'm okay with it.
We're talking about the movie real quick, the TV show. I think it was so awesome to see Ron Swanson in a like gay relationship.
Spoiler, haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Dude, what are you doing?
I don't have HBO.
If I had to get rid of all of them and I had to buy one, it would be HBO for sure. And then Crunchyroll right after that. But.
Yeah, honestly, HBO from like when I did have it a few months ago before a merger of friends, they did something and I ended up losing access to it.
Wow, this seems This seems saucy, dog.
Well,
story.
I just, it may have involved Mike and his crew. What was I talking about? I think HBO has a good set of lineups. Like when I was on there, it seemed like better than Netflix.
Way better.
Well, it's not hard.
Really, like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad are the only reasons I've kept Netflix so far. And I haven't been enjoying the Quarterback show. I've been watching an episode a day during my lunchtime.
Quarterback solid.
And man, Lou, I don't know if you played you played football at a higher level, but I just think it's so funny some of the stuff even like professional sports players will say. Like Patrick Mahomes will be on the sideline like, we got to get a field goal, or we got to get a touchdown. I'm like, no, duh, idiot. Like, what do you think? Of course you got to get that.
Honestly, I will say, out of all the years I played, I honestly never figured out. I never knew what was going on. I just, as soon as they told me to get on the field, I kind of just went on the field.
You didn't learn the playbooks or anything?
I mean, like, I didn't know the playbook. I mean, like, I knew if we were winning, if we were losing. But
you were just like, this guy is running at me, I'm gonna block him.
Yeah.
You know if it's a pass or a run, so you know the proper block.
Yeah, they're like, I knew most of the time. I knew when to get on the field. I did have to get yelled at a couple times.
How many ineligible man down fields did you get in your career?
Oh, 0. You would never see me running that far. Let's be honest here. Yeah, I did one time. I did just like completely forgot to get on the field and nobody knew. And then
you were just playing with 10 men?
They were just playing with 10 men and the quarterback got sacked. and I'm watching the play as it happened.
You're like, wait,
damn.
am I supposed to be out there?
He just went in unblocked up the B gap.
Who is stopping this guy? What is the offensive line doing? Yeah, I was thinking about other things at the game. And that is why I played for a very small NAI school.
All right. So my number 2 is a bit of a cheat. I picked Slackjaw and Granny Rags from Dishonored. And these two people live basically right down the street from each other in the main town or the main part of town that you spend probably the majority of your time. And you meet them right off on your first real mission. And the first person you meet is Granny Rags. And she's just this old, kind of weird, out there grandma. But she has a rune and a shrine to the outsider. And the outsider is this strange ethereal being that has given you magic powers that the religious order of the day is staunchly opposed to. Now, the religious order of the day is pretty scummy, so I don't know how much to take into account their dislike of this guy, but he's left very morally ambiguous. And so you kind of know right off the bat, like, this lady she's not just some kooky old lady, but she's like, hey, there's a bunch of gangbangers downstairs. Would you go deal with them? They keep trying to not like break in. And if you and if you do, I'll give you another bone charm. And bone charms are your currency to buy upgrades. And so you're like, oh, absolutely. And so you go and you take out these gangsters and you get your prize. You know, if you've gone that way, you'll probably kind of continue down the road. I think it's actually on your second mission where you go back that way. There's these gangsters and they're like, hey, Slackjaw wants to see you. You start getting missions from Slackjaw and from Granny Rags, and you can start to tell there's this weird tension between the two of them. They don't like each other. And towards the end of the game, one of the last levels, you're sneaking your way through the flooded district. It's kind of like a sewer area. And if you take this kind of side route, it's totally optional. You find Slackjaw chained up, and Granny Rags has prepared this massive cauldron of creepy bubbling liquid, and she's talking about how she needs to melt away his fat and sinew so she can carve his bones. And you have to decide, like, do I let Granny Rags just kill Slackjaw in whatever gruesome way, probably boiling in whatever that creepy potion is, or do I try and take on Granny Rags? And it's such a fun, totally optional mission that adds so much to the lore of the game. And taking on Granny Rags is really easy once you figure out how to do it, but it's not the easiest thing if you haven't figured it out. And she's definitely got some magic powers that you're not ready for right off the bat. And so, yeah, those two are they're really cool. And it's really fun the way they, you start off just doing jobs for each of them but they're each kind of going after each other. And then it culminates in this like really gruesome fashion. Big fan of those two.
Are you good at the game?
Dishonored 1, I'm not speedrun good, but I'm casual great.
Okay.
Can you do a pacifist run? Because I've heard those are the hardest one.
Every time I play, I start with a full pacifist. No
kills.
I've never. I know I've done a no kill. I've missed one thing in one level every time and just been like, screw it. I'm not going back and redoing it. I'm more than capable of going through and fixing that error if I wasn't lazy. It's one of those games where once you have it memorized a little bit, it's still fun because there's so many other options. So you can go and you can try approaching the checkpoint from a different direction, or you can just kind of slay it and take the route that you've kind of prefer and just feel like a total BA. So yeah, I'm really good at Dishonored 1. I am not good at Dishonored 2. The controls are just different enough that I have the hardest time playing. And I want to like the game so much. And I get a little bit farther every time I play it. So the next time I play Dishonored 1, I'll go in and play Dishonored 2, and maybe I'll finish it then.
I have all the hopes of doing a pacifist run, and then I just kill one person and I'm just like, well, this is over, and I just murder everybody. They make you feel such a bad person for murdering people, and so it's kind of hard to play the game because you're like, I want to be able to like do a pacifist run, but you keep catching me. I don't know what to do about that.
One of my favorite ways to play is a absolutely no reset run, because the way most people get a pacifist run is if you get caught, you just go back to your last save. I don't know. Kind of cheating, I guess.
Nothing wrong with saves coming.
Yeah.
Especially talking Baldur's Gate. Yeah.
But my favorite way to play is no save scumming, period. So you go in with whatever intentions you want, but you can't reset. You have to play all the way through. And so I've had runs where I haven't killed anybody, but I had the alarm set and I had to run away and hide. Or I play, I'll do runs where it's like, I won't kill anybody unless it's the only option. Then I'll kill you, but then I won't, so like I won't sneak up and kill anybody. But if one person sees me and they're about to ring the alarm and it's my only choice, then they're getting a blade in the neck.
For me, I'm going back to one of my all-time favorite video game franchises, and that's The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. In Twilight Princess, there's probably the best companion in any Legend of Zelda games, and that's Midna, who is, I guess you could say, voiced by, I'm going to butcher this name, Akiku Komodo. And past Legend of Zelda games, it wasn't really voices. There'd be like a laugh and a grunt and, a shocked sound. So it's not like really voice acted. This character, she's the princess of the Shadow Realm, and she's been kicked out of her kingdom by the big bad, and she ends up joining Link, who has been turned into a wolf. At first, it's just she only helps Link so she can save her people, and because there's these prophecies about him. And he starts meeting the prophecy. So she's like, oh, I'm just going to help him out so I can get what's best for me out of it. And then through this way, you see that you guys develop a friendship. It starts out with her just freeing you. And then like about a third of the way through the game, she ends up like trying to sacrifice herself to save you. And it gets to this really emotional part of the game. And especially like the piano music in there. And you just like start to really feel for this character. And you're like, I got to save her because she's on the cusp of dying. So you have to go to the Princess Zelda, who basically gives Midna her life force to stay alive. And it's just such a cool way that by the end of the game, she's like selfless. Even she started selfish, but now she's selfless. Legend of Zelda is known for annoying and frankly unlikable companions like Navi, as I don't know if it was Andrew or Mike made that joke last week when Lucian introduced this topic.
That was me.
This is really the most fleshed out Zelda companion, and it's really cool. Like I've said, basically repeat it over and over again. It's just growing with the character, and I think that's what really shows a good NPC is you see the growth in the character development. Memorable quote from her is, "Some call our realm a world of shadows. That makes it sound unpleasant. The twilight there holds a serene beauty. You have seen it yourself as the sun sets on this world. Bathed in that light, all the people were pure and gentle. But things have changed once that foul power pervaded the world."
That quote wasn't funny.
I said memorable. Did I say funny?
No, it's just the other quotes. I'm just being an asshole.
You guys play Twilight Princess?
That's one of the few I haven't played, actually. I don't have I guess I could get it on GameCube.
It's actually interesting for Wii and GameCube. So Link canonically is predominantly left-handed. So in GameCube, he is left-handed, but most people are predominantly right-handed. So they basically flipped the whole game horizontally for Wii. So Link is right-handed just so it matches that. And it's just interesting.
So the whole game is in mirror mode, essentially, right?
So it's all in mirror mode. Yep. So if you play it on GameCube, it's going to be, if you wanted to go left, you'd go right on the Wii. And I think that was a cool, innovative thing. This is probably the last good, companion character we'll get for Legend of Zelda, because going forward, I think they're going to stick to the Breath of the Wild model, which I guess a lot of people liked, but I like the old Zelda model better.
Yeah, not a fan.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild seemed very empty compared to other open world RPGs. Like Lucian said, Red Dead Redemption 2, you just go wandering and you find stuff. Stuff finds you. And then Breath of the Wild, and I haven't really played too much of Tears of the Kingdom. It just seems like a lot of empty space. So that's why I like the old Zelda games better. And there's not really companions like that in the new Zelda games.
I will say I had that problem less in Tears of the Kingdom.
Okay.
But it's still there.
Yeah, I've never really been a big Zelda fan, to be honest with you. I really liked Breath of the Wild. I finished it in about a week.
Dang.
Makes sense. It's a good game for non-Zelda fans. Besides maybe Zelda 2, it is the least Zelda game. Yeah. And people like it, so I'm happy for them. I'm happy other people like to experience the series I've loved so much. Yeah. But honestly, if that game didn't have Zelda in the title, I wouldn't have a tenth as much of an issue with it as I do with Zelda in the title.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why people are so frustrated with it. And it does feel, do you think about the reason why they did that is to get more people to like the series, right? There's no other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they survived. And
I think Breath of the Wild was truly, they wanted to experiment with it. And then once, it blew up, they're like, oh, well, now we'll just do this from now on.
Well, didn't it start off with just DLC, but they had so many ideas that they just created a second game.
Is that how? Right? I don't know how that came about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'll have my intern check it out, but I'm pretty sure that
sounds like the Silk Song, the Hollow Knight sequel. That is the story there.
But Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time was the first video game I remember playing. So that's why it's always been the Zelda series has been near and dear to my heart, because that's kind of what kicked off my gaming life.
That's super cool. All right. So my number one is probably the most hopefully will be the most biased opinion that I will ever have on this podcast. My first video game crush. Can anybody guess?
Let's see, your PlayStation.
Tomb Raider.
It could be
Ooh,
Laura Croft.
really close. Really close. I like that
Samus
one.
Aran.
Who's that?
Metroid.
Oh, breaking my heart, man.
Metroid. Well, I also don't know because Laura Croft is
Samus.
a main character, so I don't know.
She is a main character. Farah from Prince of Persia.
Oh,
Oh, that is kind of close.
It is really close. Yeah. She was one of the first games I remember playing as a child. My first understanding what an NPC is. She's the first thing that popped in my head. I thought about it. Pretty simple story. You start off as you are the prince. You start off with invading Ferrara's country, and Ferrara ends becoming a prisoner of war. And I can't remember the reason why. Probably overpower, I'm assuming. But you open up the Sands of Time. Everybody becomes zombies, and then you and Ferrara have to stop the Sands of Time. I think like there's like a Jafar situation where he's end up being the bad guy. The scary guy with the big staff. Oh, he ends up being the bad guy. She's kind of useful. She has a bow and arrow. She
Another similarity to Tomb Raider.
Yeah, she kind of crawls into small spaces, helps you out that way. Yeah, there's not much you could do with her in that time. I mean, it was better than like a lot of NPCs back in the day where they would just wander off, or you had to protect them, and they would just be so hard to protect. She at least like tried to kill some zombies with you.
Yeah, I feel like the Prince of Persia series got kind of done dirty by Assassin's Creed, where Assassin's Creed really took off. It kind of built on what Prince of Persia was and then took off, and then Ubisoft forgot about Prince of Persia and just cranked out Assassin's Creed.
I mean, to be fair, the first 3 games were amazing. I love what they did. The second one was a little off, I will say.
What? Assassin's Creed
I didn't
2?
like. No. Prince of Persia.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah. Everybody loves the second one. I mean, of Assassin's. Yeah. We'll never talk bad about that. But the first 3 games of Prince of Persia, I think, were amazing. Second one was a little off. I think they did some things I didn't agree with, and they hired Godsmack, the band, to play. I don't know if you guys know Godsmack at all. Really weird band.
Yeah.
Wouldn't recommend them. But there's a Godsmack song in the game, and they play it religiously. Anytime something crazy happens, they play it, and it just drove me nuts.
Well, I mean, if you paid for it, you might as well use it. Unlike,
I guess,
like Halo 2 had Breaking Benjamin write a song, and it's like in one little portion. It's a good song too, and it's on like one little hallway scene for Halo 2, and I wish they played it more.
So my number 1 is Gary Oak from Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver, Pokemon Crystal, Pokemon Fire Red, Pokemon Leaf Green, Pokemon Soul Silver, and Pokemon Heart Gold. FU, Let's Go Pikachu, and Let's Go Eevee.
Hold up. Saying Gary Oak, but you're not giving him his canonical proper name. We're beefing.
I like beef. Beef is good.
His real name is Blue in the games, but go ahead.
Fair. All right. Well, it depends. I played a lot of Yellow, and I believe it gave you the option for Ash and Gary as your names in Yellow.
I'll give you Yellow because they did tend more towards the TV show. But
yes,
Red and
Blue is fair.
Red is Ash, and Blue is Gary.
His name was a lot different when I got to name him, I will say.
Yeah, that's true. Jerkface is a nicer name.
But I genuinely, I think I played up to Sun and Moon. I think, what is that, 7 generations? And just easily, Gary is by far the best rival. Just no question. Because it's such an interesting dynamic because he's always getting to the gyms first. Like if you read that little sign, it tells you that Gary Oak or whatever you named him, that he beat the gym before you, but you always beat him in the head-to-heads story-wise. And it's such an interesting thing. Just one to think about. He's always insulting you. He's always hitting you with the smell you later. And if you really think about it, there's probably that like a ton of like insecurity in the character just because he wants to be the best, but he's always getting one-upped by you. And even though he gets there first, you're still better than him. But because he's always a difficult fight, and because he's always insulting you, it drives you to want to be better. And so it really is a true rivalry, which is something that just started going downhill immediately after the first generation of games. But so, yeah. And then the first time I beat the Elite Four, I made it through on revives and full restores and white knuckles. Like I had no business beating the Elite Four with the level I had on my team, but I'd manage to stay alive and be reviving and full restoring people until I could get a hit in and just, chisel them away. And I finally beat Lance. I had a Pokemon and a half at most, and I was so excited to beat the game. that I didn't even read the dialogue, and I walked up and I walked right into the final fight with the rival with a Pokemon and a half. Like, I didn't even heal up before the final fight, and I managed to cheese my way through it the same way I managed to cheese my way through the rest of it, just reviving and full restoring my way through. But it was such just a intense and terrifying moment for me, that fight, where I was like, I did it. And I all of a sudden, just the elation of beating this game was just ripped away from me, and I was in the fight of my life, and I was underprepared, and that was awesome. But what I really, really like about the character is that in the second games, he takes over as gym leader for Giovanni. He's the final gym leader when you go back to Kanto, and you kind of get to just see the maturation and just the mellowing of Gary, or whatever of Blue as a character. Yeah, I think it's really cool because he starts out as your rival, and because he's such a jerk, he pushes you to be better. And then the next time you meet him in the second game, you see that he's also grown, which is something you don't always see in your bad guys. Not even bad guys, just your antagonists. And yeah, so that's why he's my number one.
Yeah, well, one reason he might be such a jerk is his grandpa can't even remember his own name. So
Shoot.
That's fair.
That's fair.
One thing I think is also interesting, because I actually thought about having Blue as in my top 5, was you do see a change in the first gen. There's this theory, it's never confirmed, but that you the main character kill his Rattata.
Eradicate?
Is Eradicate at that point? Because you battle him, and then he has his Eradicate, and then next time you see him, he's in Lavender Town, which is basically the town where this giant like graveyard is to Pokemon. He's like mourning, and usually he would fight you, but he just like is sobbing and runs away. So there's this theory that you end up fighting him and killing his Pokemon, and that kind of like starts to turn him around. That's a great option. Like I thought about having even just like the rivals through Gen 1s and 3s on here. If he was more of an NPC, I was going to say Red from Gen 2, just because that is such a memorable moment. He doesn't actually even say anything, but he is a non-playable character in that realm. When
Yeah,
he
Red just... I think I ran into Red for the first time at like 12 years old, and I was maybe 23 the first time I finally beat him.
It's no joke.
Yeah, that is a serious fight.
And they actually, Red and Blue do make an appearance in Sun and Moon in the post game.
Yeah, I was pretty sure they were also in Black and White or Black and White 2 in the Battle Tower or whatever it is. But really, it was just Gen 1 and Gen 2, that storyline. I just thought it'd be fun to list off all of those games.
What did you name your rival, Lou?
Oh, I mean, anything under the book. I mean, anything that, I mean, I'm not, nothing I could say on this podcast. I'll tell you that. I was a Pokemon player way before I became a Christian.
So for my number 1, did any of you guys play the Elder Scrolls series?
I tried Oblivion for a hot second. I didn't get past the jail, to be honest with you.
I tried, why am I drawing a blank on this? Yeah, thank you. What the heck? I tried Skyrim, but it was right after I finally got a feel for the controls and all the RPG settings of Dark Souls. And I started a little bit and I was like, no, I'm not learning another RPG immediately after figuring out this one, and just kind of never went back. But I did download it recently on PS5. It's on the list for whatever that means.
Sorry, I just assumed that Skyrim was a given. Like everybody should play Skyrim. So I didn't even include Skyrim. And
did you play Skyrim though?
Oh, I religiously played Skyrim.
Okay, so you'll know this character. I think this character really comes to fruition in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, but you'll definitely know who it is, and that is the Daedric Prince of Madness, Sheogorath, voiced by Wes Johnson. Like I said,
who else, really?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's the only obvious choice. His first big appearance, as I said, was in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion in the Shivering Isles DLC. In this expansion, the player finds a portal to the realm of madness and ends up making his way to the Mad Throne itself. Throughout the expansion, the player is tested and toyed with and ends up becoming the champion for the Daedric Prince. And then Sheogorath tells the hero of Kvatch that at the end of every era, Jiggalag, the Daedric Prince of Order, rises up to destroy the realm of madness and force Sheogorath to restart from scratch. And throughout the DLC, you kind of start getting these pieces, these clues that maybe that's not all what it says. And by the end, you find out that Jiggalag is actually a side of Sheogorath, where it's his true form, and he gains temporary sanity and hates what he sees and just destroys everything. You, the player, have to fight this Daedric Prince, Daedric Princes are like lesser deities in that world, kind of like the Maiar in Lord of the Rings. So kind of think of that in my art. If that analogy helps you, if not, just throw it out the window. You end up defeating him, and then the main character becomes the avatar of Sheogorath, and slowly throughout the time morphs into him, begins to look like this crazy looking character. And you actually find out in Skyrim, he makes a side note of the things that happen in 4. So you can tell that it is the hero from 4 has fully become this Daedric Prince of Madness. And probably one of my favorite quotes from him, and he has so many, but it was, "I once dug a pit and filled it with clouds." Or was it clowns? Well, whichever it was, it began to smell. Must have been clowns. Clouds don't smell. They taste of butter and tears. Yeah, it's just, he has so many lines, like saying he's gonna kill you and jump rope with your intestines, or trying to give people cheese. And really, the mainline Elder Scrolls game really knock it out of the park. The Elder Scrolls Online kind of just deduces him to, he likes a lot of cheese and says a lot of cheese things. I think he is unforgettable, and the way he is written and voiced is amazing.
I played a lot of Skyrim. I have no idea who you're talking about. I don't even remember running into him.
So you meet one of his servants in Solitude. He's like, "I got to get back to my master." And you end up going into the palace and like go into this realm of dreams, and you get the Wabbajack, and you which randomly turns things into random objects or, random things.
I was surprised that you didn't say the arrow to the knee guy.
Honestly, I thought it was coming. I was like, you can't be serious.
Honorable mention. So next week I'll be hosting. My topic is top 5 fictional worlds that you would want to live in. It can be from movies, books, games, shows, etc. And I'll allow one alternative Earth.
Okay.
So you can say Star Trek, but if you say Earth in Star Trek, that counts as your Earth. But you could say planet Vulcan or whatever it's called, and that doesn't count as your Earth. So just stuff like that. Like I said, any form of medium you're allowed to choose.
Very cool. There's a lot of isekais in anime, so I feel like I have a lot of good shots of some good stuff.
And you can also interpret that as 5 worlds you'd want to be like the main character, or 5 worlds that you would just want to live in. Because there's some worlds that I would like to live in, but I definitely would not want to be the main character. So
right.
I'll leave that up to your guys' discretion on how you want to interpret that.
If you are the main character, do you have all the powers of the main character?
We'll say yes.
Okay.
Ooh.
Well, my number 1 just got established because I'm about to live like a freaking king in Minecraft.
That's a risky world, but all right.
Probably not, but it's tempting.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Top Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, please comment and subscribe. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please comment and leave a review for us. Keep rocking in the free world. Do. Nobody's gonna say do. What the hell?
Toot.
Okay, thank you. Learn. Shout out to Nardwar.